So I realized I didn't actually do like my end of my reaction commentary for Me and T episode 9. And I had already like inserted all of my like overlay and stuff like that, and so I did not feel like taking the chance of like adding something there. Although I guess I could have just recorded this and then added it to the end. Well, anyways, here's my post-reaction commentary on episode 9 of Me and T. And so the first thing I think that I appreciated, and I mentioned it in the quote from T when he is like having his little battle with Touch, like about the winner not even having to play the game, and sort of like articulating to Touch, like, why are you trying so hard to get into this world when it's such a burden in some ways? And I think that was such an important part, in part because it does highlight some of the differences between Touch and T, but it also, I think, sets up really nicely for the conversation that we see later with Peach and his parents, in particular the dad. And I also really like both the approach that the dad and Peach take, and then, you know, sort of the dad being like, are you prepared for this? And Peach being like, you know, I'm scared. Or, well, one, I think the conversation that that T and the dad have about, which, I mean, T particularly saying that, like, he's scared of guns, he's scared of everything about me, and yet he's still here, and he's staying by my side. And then Peach later being like, I would be asking what I could do to improve so that I could stay by his side. And I'm like, because they recognize that sacrifice. And then here you have Touch, who could, in theory, live a normal life and is trying so hard to get into this world where there is chaos and burden and hindrance and things, where T is like, I was afraid to even bring my partner up to my parents because of this world, and I have to work hard to make sure that he is safe, and you don't have to deal with that, and yet you're trying to enter it. And then you have Tawan also saying to Peach, like, bruh, why are you even working so hard to do this? If your daddy wanted to acknowledge you, he would have done that already. Like, girl. And so I like that they had sort of that I think it sort of helps to frame T. And so I think it was useful. At the same time, I also feel like that whole storyline was kind of silly. I also kind of feel like they could have just had some other random, like, outside source of, like, concern that we never really knew who they were, that could have helped propped up, like, the worry and concern that Peach would need to have, or that T would need to think through. You know what I mean? So I feel like they didn't have to have Touch's story to move it, but whatever. And then I think, like, it's hard to care about who are they again? Tawan and Eran. Like, I said in my little bit, I was like, oh, you're not standing on business because you ready to just, like, have this man move in your house when you literally just, like, packs up his stuff and sent him on his way last week. But it's the speed of it all. And I mean speed in terms like the movie, right? Like, that you get this adrenaline, or like this immediate sort of danger, this concern, and then that sort of forces you to reconcile with your feelings. And so I can recognize that Eran was like, okay, damn it, I do love this man, which we already knew that because he said it last time, like, the person I love is you, and get out of my house. But it also is like, I don't know that I care, in the sense that, like, the series has not really shown me why he cares so much, like, why he would be so invested in literally getting down on his knees and figuratively getting down on his knees to do whatever, you know, do what he had to do to help save Tawan. And so I feel like, and again, it didn't need to be in the series for me personally, you know what I mean? Because we only have one episode left, so we're not going to get more of it, I don't think. So we could have done without that. Was it intriguing? Was it nice? Was it also good for, again, I think it was done in a way that was helpful to the story of Peach and T. One, of showing the progress of T and recognizing the balance of, like, going from being that person who was super, super jealous, like, super jealous, and, like, any interaction with another person was like, to being like, I can find a balance. Like, obviously he still threatened him a little bit later, but in that moment, like when he saw them hugging on the steps, didn't immediately react. And so we sort of saw that progress happen throughout the series. And so in some ways, that was a way of communicating that growth of T, and also Peach's trust of T. So that was good. But again, I think there's different ways that could have been done. You know what? Probably is good that I didn't do this at the end of this video, because I would have only had like 3 minutes at the end of the last video to do that. And here I am. It's already almost 6 minutes here. And I think the whole situation with the parents was absolute perfection for me. That was, in fact, I mean, the whole episode was overall was a good episode. Like, again, there was things that we didn't necessarily need. I did like seeing Tawan sort of be that good guy and warning, and his stated commitment, but he had also already committed beforehand, and then he came back and like punched somebody in the face. But anyways, but like that whole section with the parents was so fantastic, and I said it, and I almost teared up. Actually, I did tear up. No tears came down, but I was welling up there when the dad was like, basically, I'm not so much worried. I'm less worried about the reputation of the family as I am the happiness of the family. And I think that happiness, of course, is situated in how he sees and compares his wife to Peach, and that they are strong people, that their happiness as well is important, because his wife, having been a person who survives kidnappings and being chased and blah, 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 can still smile, is important to him. And so I think when he was thinking about who his kids would be partnered with, they would need to be partnered with somebody who could experience those things and still smile, still be happy, not feel like they're trapped in this family, not feel like they are suffocating in this life. And so for me, that was such an important line. And I might be interpreting it way deeper than they meant to. But that's how I interpret that thing about the happiness part, that it wasn't just, yeah, family reputation, okay, cool, whatever, but like the happiness, that I don't want people to feel like they can't be happy in this family, and I'm like, ugh. And I think there's a way in which, sort of the way they were sort of pushed, because I think there was a part where the dad says something like, what did T say to you, or Kian say to you, that made you kind of scared about the whole reputation versus happiness. And so in some ways, while his dad does really value that, I think sometimes the way it's communicated to his children is done so in a way that creates a sense of fear, and not so much about a sense of like belongingness, connectedness, community, happiness, or whatever. So there's sort of a little bit of a disconnect maybe that was happening there. And so like he is doing it out of this direction, but the children are sort of interpreting it, and even Mook, from this direction, right? They're afraid, they're scared. Okay, so anyways, now we're already over 8 minutes. I'm gonna stop talking now, because usually when my videos go really long, the captions don't tend to work for some reason. So we're just gonna stop anyways. Thank you for listening to me. I'm sure I have 13 more thoughts, but we're gonna pause for now until the finale. Actually, probably I probably will post more about this until you see me again. Bye.